welcome back to a new episode of the On the Bloc podcast. Start of a new series today. You've got myself, Ryan, content manager for Bloc, and I'm very lucky to be joined today by Todd. Todd is the owner of 24/7 Clo. Really looking forward to chatting to him today. So, Todd, do you want to take it away with a bit of intro about yourself?
Thanks, Ryan. First of all, thanks for having me on. It's been a long time coming. I'm Todd, 21, founder and creative director of 24/7, luxury UK streetwear brand, based in Carlisle, north of England, and that's me.
So I guess probably where we'll start before we get into the brand itself, we'll sort of get more into your background and where you sort of found your interest in fashion. So if you were to say, where did your interest start? Like what got you into want to start in a brand and got you to where you are right now?
So what's a bit crazy really is, and probably contrary to most brand owners you'll speak to, is when I was younger, I was never really into art or fashion or any sort of creative space like that. At least I didn't think I was. Like art at school, like hated it, like it just bored me. I could never see myself doing anything design wise, to be honest with you. But then like my first kind of real interest in fashion of some sort was probably when I was like 8 or 9 year old. And again, I didn't realize it at the time, but I was big into like skateboarding and skatewear. So at that time, I was just going for like the skate look and the skate attire, So it was like the skinny jeans, oversized tees, like high sneakers and stuff.
Yeah.
But again, like at the time, I didn't really realize that I was kind of into it or anything. And I've always been someone who's been quite entrepreneurial. So from the age of like, I would say like 15, 16, I was always kind of messing around with like Shopify stores and e-commerce online, whether that was like drop shipping. Like I used to sell like phone cases online and like stuff like that. I had like 4 or 5 Shopify stores from the ages of like 16 to kind of like 18, 19. And I think it was probably when I was like 18, I set up my first clothing brand. And it's completely different to what 24/7 is today. The brand was actually called Self-Made Apparel UK, and it was very basic. It was like just a print on demand brand, and we sold mainly to customers in the US actually. But yeah, it was completely different to what 24/7 was or is. But then like 2.5 years ago, I just decided one day like I do want to set up a proper streetwear brand, because from the age of like 18 when I set up Self-Made Apparel to now, I did get a real interest in streetwear, and I thought, you know what, I've got a real interest in this, but I don't want to be a consumer of it. I want to be a creative and a designer, and so I thought I'd give it a go. And with my background in like e-commerce and marketing and then therefore graphic design, I kind of just put all my skills together. I did a lot of research, and here we are today with 24/7. So I really just wanted to create a brand. Looking at the market and the streetwear industry, I wanted to create a brand where I could create luxury streetwear, but also streetwear which you could wear kind of anytime, anywhere, and that would last for 5 to 10 years. So not just like a fast fashion brand where you buy a piece for not a lot of money, and then you might throw it out again. You might throw it out in like 6 months time or whatever, or wear it once and never wear it again. The clothes that I make are designed, they're built to last, and they're designed to last you 5 or 10 years, and whilst also retaining like a luxury quality feel as well.
Sounds good. Just taking it back to sort of your early influences in fashion, would you say that, like you say, would you describe that you have your own personal style? Would you say that, you go out and look for other brands, or has your focus since starting the initial brand to now, has it just been full focus on that?
Yeah, my personal style, I would say it's always been, well, especially for the probably last 4 or 5 years, like ever since I got a real interest in the streetwear fashion industry, would be a bit of like a streetwear and sportswear hybrid, which I think is where the industry is going. I've seen it going that way kind of over the last 6, 7 months. And I think it's going to continue to go that way for the next kind of year or two, or possibly longer. Um, I do like wearing quite oversized heavyweight stuff. As you can see, I've got on the new 24/7 training gym sweater here. So this is like an oversized warm up inspired piece with like a vintage wash on it as well. So I'd say that's probably my style. Like I like my oversized stuff. Um, I like my cargos and like flared baggier jeans and stuff as well. So yeah, from my personal style, I'd probably say that's the type of stuff I wear.
And do you think like with being from Carlisle, like I'm from Stoke, so from a place that's not really
Yeah.
known for fashion as such, from quite a small place. Do you think there was any influences you took from where you were from, or do you think it's I guess the way the world is now, where there's more sort of homogenization of everything with Instagram, with the
Yeah.
internet, with the change and everything. Do you think more of your inspiration was led from what you see online to, I guess, oppose what you grew up with and what was around
Yeah,
you?
100%. Like where I live, there's kind of no streetwear brand or big fashion brand as such that's came from Carlisle. Many of the viewers probably don't even know where it is. Like it's a small city, top of England. Not much goes on here. Yeah, so I'd say most of my inspirations it's all been mainly through social media. I take a lot of inspiration from like a lot of creators and designers that I follow. Like I love the stuff that like Cole Buxton and Johnny Wilson do, and obviously the Heaton brothers represent. Luigi from Rude, obviously the late Virgil. I like what the Nude Project guys do, and there's loads of brands out there which I've taken inspiration from in the streetwear scene. So yeah, I would say mainly like through social media and those avenues. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things with the last sort of 10 years, and a lot of the things that I sort of see from speaking to a lot of other brand owners is that that sort of connection of seeing stuff from around the world and seeing what others are doing to help inspire you to find what you want to work on and find what you like. Because I think when you grow up in a place that's maybe not like London or New York,
Yeah.
where you can really see it
Yeah.
on the street, it's hard to sort of find that inspiration. Maybe 15, 20 years ago, unless you saw it in like a music video or on a magazine, it probably you'd be totally unaware of what these brands are. um, and then looking at some of like the inspirations that you've just sort of mentioned there, they're some of the biggest, fastest
Yeah.
growing brands and designers over the past 5 or 6 years. And I think looking at some of them and looking at what you're trying to start now with your brand, what sort of things do you think is the sort of challenges? Because there are a lot of brands in the space. What have you sort of found hard from creating a brand, starting to try and find your own ideas? Where have those hardest sort of points been so far?
Yeah, well, obviously, like you say there, like the social media thing's massive. That's something we obviously kind of going down. I think a lot of brands in the streetwear scene now are essentially just known as like social media brands, especially in the beginning. And one thing with that is like what we're really trying to do is build community. I know in the industry, like community is a big thing, and it has been for years. Um, so that's one thing that we're really trying to do this year is build community around our brand, interact with our followers, our customers, and get to know them on like a personal level, um, and really build that core community. In terms of like challenges and stuff, in the early days, like yeah, well, there's challenges every day with running a streetwear brand. Like there's always fires you've got to put out, whatever that may be. Um, One big challenge for me that stands out, I would say. So after our first collection launched in May of 2022, the Bold collection, which is still like our best selling collection today. It's kind of like our staple collection. It's our best selling collection, and it's kind of what we're known for. It's what put us on the map somewhat, at least. Um, so just after that collection, the next collection we were launching in the fall winter of 22 was the initiation of the Timeless collection. So the first piece for that collection consisted of an oversized grey sweater, like a similar silhouette to this one. Obviously Timeless logo on the front, and then a big graphic print on the back with like an eagle. So that was scheduled and planned to drop in the October, like mid to late October of 2022. And at the time, we were working with a blanks provider, rather than going like cut and sew through a manufacturer. So
Yeah.
yeah, we'd done all the work and all the preparation, and yeah, we were set to drop this, start the collection off in the October. And anyway, it got pushed back because our blanks supplier were going through supply chain issues. So it got pushed back to the November. And at the time, like that late October, early November was perfect. Like we built so much hype around, the start of the collection. I had people messaging me every day, like when's this coming out? I need this, blah, blah, blah. And the hype I built around it was perfect. And if we'd have been able to drop it at that time, it would have gone crazy. But anyway, so they said November, push back. I was like, okay, not ideal at all, but I guess, I'm just going to have to play the cards I'm dealt and go for it. A few weeks go by, and then it's December. I'm like, right, that's, come on. Then it was January, and I'm like, right, well, this is too late now. It's like 2 or 3 months overdue. Like that's just not going to work. So then I had to change manufacturer. I just basically cancelled my order with them because there was a real lack of transparency there, and so I cancelled my order with them and went cut and sew. It was like real stressful to get it turned around in such a short period of time, to be able to drop it as soon as we could, because obviously we were missing the season, and it was, before we knew it, if we weren't careful, it would have ended up going into spring, which we didn't want, because obviously that was just going to then push back future collections. The piece didn't end up dropping till like March of 2022, so it was like 6 months late. So we had like 6 months of like not much cash coming into the business, and it really stinted the growth. But I suppose, being an entrepreneur, being a brand owner, these things are kind of somewhat going to happen. Challenges like that, whether that's, manufacturers, stock issues, etc. So you've just got to take it on the chin and just, keep moving on, I suppose, and learn from them, which is what I've done. But yeah, so in terms of a challenge, that was one of the biggest challenges I've faced, because, like I said, I do think it stinted the growth of the business, because we were on a real good trajectory. We had a real success with the first collection. We had built a good following and a good core community who were all looking forward to the next drop, because I, shared it on social media and built some hype around it, and they were all really looking forward to it. And it just got pushed back and pushed back. And when something gets pushed back by 5 or 6 months, the hype around it is going to naturally die. I mean, that Timeless sweater is still our best selling piece, like just solo piece to date. So it still performed well, but I just think for the brand overall, it would have propelled us much more if we could have dropped it when was intended.
When you wanted to, yeah. And in terms of those differences between suppliers, and for people who don't know, like going from a blanks to a cut and sew, what would you say is the biggest difference that you've seen from working for the different suppliers?
Yeah.
Like, where if you don't mind me asking, like what country do they come from? Is there any challenges you've had with like importing or working with language barriers or different suppliers? Or how is that working
Yeah.
currently?
So first of all, for any like new brand owner or someone who's wanting to start a brand, obviously I'm still just learning the space, but having been in around it now for a number of years and understanding how it works, and I would suggest to avoid blank suppliers. I'm not going to name any names or anything, but I would avoid blank suppliers purely because they're essentially a middleman. So they are still going through the cut and sew process with a manufacturer somewhere, or they might make it in house, but they are essentially just seeing you as a consumer, not like not a business partner or not someone that they want to work with long term. They see you as a consumer, so they just want to sell you their product, which is blanks, and they're not unique. I mean, I still handpicked them in a way, like, because I still wanted blanks that fit the kind of ethos and aesthetic of the brand. So it was like, heavyweight, oversized stuff, and the product quality was amazing. But it was just a real lack of transparency from them. So one thing I've noticed from blank suppliers is that, like, it's just a real lack of transparency. Really hard to kind of get in touch with them when something goes wrong, obviously. And like I said, it's just having a blank supplier as your kind of supplier for your garments is just a hindrance, because it's an extra person in the chain. I think it's important to limit the amount of people in the process, in the production process, the amount of like steps it takes. So like they're starting to cut and sew, then it goes to a blank supplier, then to me, then to the consumer. So it's like 4 steps. Whereas if you can just go cut and sew, which is obviously harder and it takes more skill and more time, but in the long run, it's much more worthwhile, because your garments are actually made for, like, you've made them. You know what I mean? Like, they're personal to you. They're not just taken from a warehouse that a blank supply's made, where anyone else can just buy the exact same garment and chuck their logo on it. So I would say that's the main thing to kind of look out for, I would say.
And how have you sort of found that transition into cut and sew? Because I imagine for like people who necessarily don't have a fashion background, so I don't know what your background is education wise, or trying to work with say suppliers where you need tech packs, where you need sizing guides, where you need the full works to get the garment how you want. How have you found that sort of development? How have you found the progress in terms of being able to get it right, so the product that you get to sell to your customer is exactly what you want?
Yeah, so by trade, I work in marketing. And like I said, I had no like official background in fashion or anything, but everything I've done kind of in my life, I've always just kind of like self-taught myself, I think. So for me, it was just, I just taught myself everything. Sometimes, that can take longer, but I do think for some people it's more effective teaching yourself stuff. So yeah, like, I think for me, it was just a case of learning how to create. Well, yeah, so like just cut it all back, I suppose. Like learning how to create a tech pack. First of all, what even a few years ago, I didn't even know what a tech pack was. You know what I mean? I first heard the word getting thrown about. I was like, what is a tech pack? Learned what tech packs are. Learned how to create them. How to properly draw garments. Like creating patterns and stuff. Obviously, you send those off to your manufacturer, wherever they may be. Get get them back, get like a sample back, and go from there, I suppose. But the process is a lot longer. Going cut and sew compared to a blank supply, the process is longer because there's so many more little steps you've got to take to get it right. And there's so many more minute details, especially for a brand like 24/7. A lot of the stuff I focus on is attention to detail. If something's a centimeter or half a centimeter off, like I'll change it. You know what I mean? If it's not how it was meant to look, I'll change it. I'm quite meticulous when it comes to that. Because I know if I was buying a product, I'd want it to be exactly right. You know what I mean? So yeah, I would say that's kind of like the main thing. I taught myself most of it, and a lot of it's trial and error. You learn along the way. You'll make mistakes along the way, which every brand owner has. So yeah, I would say that's kind of the main thing on that, from that point of view. Yeah.
And is there anything that from like where you've learned, whether that be like a YouTube video, whether that be a certain person, is there anything that really stands out to you from your journey of learning that really thinks like that was a really key nugget of advice? That was the point where I was like, actually, I think that was really important for me to see or know. Is there anything that stands out there?
I can't really think of specific examples. But yeah, like out of all the research I did, like whether that was speaking to people in the industry, as simple as possibly YouTube or Google and stuff like that, I think the main thing which still sticks with me today, and it's something that I always live by now when I'm designing, is make clothes that I will love. I don't make them for I make them for my customers, but I make them because I love them. And then because I love my clothes and what I make, I'm then able to kind of project that much better. And then therefore my community and customers can get on board with it easier, and see the passion and the work that's gone into creating these garments, whether that's the very start, so the early design stages, all the way through until the campaign and the shoot, like step by step. If I love my product and I love the campaign and I love the whole process of it, I think that's the main thing. Being able to showcase, the work and the passion which has gone into creating a collection. So I'd say, yeah, like it's about making clothes for you that you love, that you would wear, not that you think someone else would wear but you wouldn't. Like you've got to love every single piece that you make.
And do you think that's even harder now? Like I even find it myself of trying to find, when you see certain trends, like we've probably both seen the trends over the last year or so of like Tim's and
Yeah.
baggy jeans and super oversized stuff. And do you think it's hard not to take influence sometimes of thinking, well, if that's, what the consumer wants, does that fit my style? Does that fit who I am? Has that ever really been a challenge where you find it like, is this a trend for now? Is this something I actually like? Does it actually suit me? Because I've definitely found that where you think, you see people wearing certain things and you're like, oh, that looks cool. That looks, I think that's great, but it doesn't really suit you and it doesn't
Yeah.
resonate with your personal
Yeah.
style. Do you find that as a challenge? I mean, with being on Instagram all the time, that you see a lot of stuff that it's hard not to, right? It's hard not to sort of take those things in. Is that ever been a consideration for you personally?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just about finding like the balance, like the middle ground. Inspiration and following trends is a massive thing in the industry, but at the same time, like you see a lot of copying going on and people getting way too like caught up in trends, and it almost gets to the point where like every brand and every collection, every like garment that you see like just looks the same. Like you can tell when somebody has come up with an idea, and it's sold really well and it's maybe started a bit of a trend, and then loads of brands just kind of like cling on to it, just to try follow that trend and capture new customers. Um, so it's about finding that middle ground. So like I think it's important that brands create garments that they love. Like so with 24/7, like there's somewhat we follow trends in the industry, but like we create clothes which align with our ethos and what 24/7 means, not just what like is going on in the market and in the industry. So I think it's, yeah, like I said, it's about finding that middle ground. So it's like what's the industry gonna kind of accept and get on board with, whilst also kind of meeting your brand ethos and what your brand stands for, to be able to like balance it out, and obviously like I said before, like what works for you and what something that you'll love, not just um the wider industry.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is there sort of like from where you've been so far and the drops that you've done, is there something that throughout your journey to where you're at now with the brand that really stands out as you think was like, wow, like I can't believe I've done this, like whether it be a product, whether it be a customer from a certain part of the world, like is there something that's really just like blown your mind since being on this journey?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few. I mean, like all the time, there's certain moments, which will make you proud to, every day that there's things that'll happen, whether it's a message I get from somebody saying, they've received the garment, they absolutely love it, and they'll send me pictures and post pictures wearing it and stuff like some like little things like that just make your day. You know what I mean? A couple of times we've had like footballers and stuff tag us with their orders and stuff, which is pretty cool. But I think the main one for me, which still like stands out, it was the first collection we did. So yeah, like I said earlier, so it was like May 2022. Um, we had just done a collaboration with an Instagram creator, a guy called Liam Gallagher, not from Oasis, different Liam Gallagher. You can find him on Instagram actually. It's lay me down Liam. So we first reached out to him to do a collab with him in the May, and I think at the time he had like 10k followers on Instagram or something. So it was just a case of like, I think we gifted him a hoodie, and his plan was to kind of make a couple posts around it, make some content around it. And I was coming back from a flight. I can't remember where we've been now. So we'd sent him this piece. He posted this reel, I think, on Instagram. And when I landed, I checked my phone. His reel had 12.6 million views. His following had gone up by like 40 or 50k. And it was a 24/7 hoodie like that he featured in the reel. So it was just so insane to think like 12.6 million eyes on the brand. Like when I had basically just started the brand as well, that was big for us. Just in terms of like brand awareness and exposure, and you get people talking to you saying like, oh, like I've just seen this reel, like it's your hoodie, etc. Like so that's cool. And obviously like little things like like the first order, like I still remember those times, yeah, seeing somebody else buy and wear something that I've designed is still like to this day like just an unbelievable feeling.
And going back to sort of what you've just mentioned there about like working with influencers and working with content creators, is that something that's been part of the strategy that you think has really helped your brand grow? Like, how have you found it? Because I think with every brand you get sort of a mixed
Yeah.
response. But from the response you've given there, from what Liam's created, like I've seen Liam's content and he's really
Yeah.
good. He's really good. So it's good to hear that how that's helped your brand. But is that been part of your long-term strategy, or has that just been as and when? Like, how have you found that working for you so
Yeah,
far?
so in the early days, that was definitely part of the our strategy, was work with creators, just purely from like a brand awareness point of view, and just getting the brand name out there as simply as that. In the long run, probably not. I think there has been a real change in kind of influencer marketing over the last 18 months. We've worked with loads, obviously Liam being one. I get on with Liam really well. And we've worked with loads of other guys as well, which are all really cool guys. Everyone in the space is, really cool to work with. But what I've kind of noticed in the last 18 months is a real shift in like the cost and probably like the ROI on influencer marketing. A lot of Instagram creators now are getting signed up to like talent agencies. So now they seem to charge like stupid money. Some of them, not all. Some like agencies on behalf of the creators will charge like stupid money for a collab. And sometimes the ROI just doesn't make sense. Like, you'll get some agencies for an Instagram page which will have maybe like 80k followers, for example, and they'll try and charge you like 2 or 3 grand for an Instagram post. It's like, come on, it's just not worth it. You know what I mean? You can do so much more with your money from that point of view. So I'd say in the early stage, the influence marketing was definitely part of the strategy. Going forward, it is a little bit like, but not completely. Every drop we do tend to work with 1 or 2 influencers. But it's not as bullish as we did in the early stages, where like with the first collection, I think we worked with like 7 or 8 Instagram influencers. But now we kind of just tend to work with like 1 or 2 throughout the year. So yeah, but I think one thing as well, like I think the bigger brands in the industry, I think they've got a real monopoly over like smaller brands and upcoming brands in terms of influencer
sure.
marketing, because these big brands are obviously willing to pay thousands of pounds to agencies for a collaboration, whereas smaller brands, it's just not possible. So because of that monopoly they've created, it's really tricky for new startup brands. I was lucky in the sense, like 18 months ago, or like 2 years ago, influencer marketing wasn't really like an expensive thing. It was usually just a case of like, you can gift a piece, you'll maybe pay them, you'll pay them, but like it wasn't stupid money or anything like that. But now it's like thousands of pounds. And what is frustrating as well, like you get the owners of these big brands coming out and saying like, oh yeah, we don't pay people to wear our clothes and this and that. When I've spoken to people in the industry and I know that they do. But so yeah, but like I said, it's just a game. And you know, some of these big brands now, they have created a bit of a monopoly for new startup brands, which makes it trickier for a brand just starting out to be able to gain traction on social media
to
through other
compete.
creators. But yeah,
Do, do you think that sort of changes the shift in power of creators? Because I think, like you say, that the big talent agencies do hoover up, like, you know, the people that you see regularly everywhere, all over the place. But do you think that in the same way kind of gives opportunity to like smaller creators, to like creators who may not get reached out to by these big
yeah,
brands? Do you think it gives opportunity to those people?
100%, 100%, and I love that. Like, I do try and work with like smaller creators as well. Like just because it's beneficial for the both of us, you know, and especially you know if they're a cool guy and we can get on well and build a long term relationship and work with them in the future as well. Definitely like that's like what I mentioned before about the community. Like in the industry, there's so many like creators out there just posting like their daily fits or anything like that. And you'll see all the interactions they'll get in the comments from other creators and other brands, and it's like it's just such a cool community to be in. And like you said there, like it is a good opportunity for smaller creators to be able to collab with brands which they you know maybe didn't think they would be able to work with or anything like that. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I've noticed with Bloc Device, like similar to you, is trying to create a community of creators of helping small brands out and helping small creators get that leverage because it's hard.
Yeah,
It's, you know, the way the algorithm is, you know, the way, you know, certain brands and pages, like you say, have got like the same sort of circle that is the upper echelon and stuff. But like to try and work with like some small creators, like I've seen creators that have like 2 to 5K followers, and you think, wow, like it deserves the more
yeah,
recognition. Like what you're doing
100%.
is really good, but sometimes it's just that one opportunity and that one connecting the dot, like what you said with Liam, where sometimes things happen by like a happy
Yeah,
accident. Like one video takes
yeah,
off, and then all of a sudden, you know, your follower grows massively. It helps you. It helps the creator. It helps the
yeah.
brand. But it's interesting to hear like where you think the strategy is going with that. I don't know. No, influencer marketing is obviously one of the biggest sort of forms of marketing in the space we're
Yeah,
in now.
100%.
But sort of touching on sort of wider marketing strategies. Is there anything you look at from like paid ads? Is there anything you look at from like PR or press that have helped your brand? Like what other strategies are apart from using influencers that have helped you get to where you're at right now?
Yeah, so I think paid ads is something like I've done a little bit. Like not to get too technical, but like in the early stages and still today, like using meta ads and stuff like that, and Instagram ads. It's not something we like do too much. I like to try build as like much as like an organic audience as possible, and gain all like well gain as much organic customers as possible. Um, so like a lot of it's just been like through content strategy, I suppose, and just the posts we put out, and you know the platforms they're on. So like this year we're doing a bit more on TikTok. I'm going to do a bit more on YouTube this year from like well, not my personal life, but like me personally, like at shoots and stuff like that, kind of almost like vlogging them a little bit. We've done one behind the scenes vlog, which is on our
Yeah,
YouTube for a shoot we did about 18 months, 2 years ago. Um, which was really good. Like it's good to be able to show people like the behind the scenes of what goes on of running a brand and stuff, which is what I want to show a lot more this year. In terms of like a PR point of view, that's something again like I'm pushing a lot more this year. Obviously, like when I saw like what you guys did and stuff, like I just thought straight away like, oh, I need to you know like get in touch with these guys and just build a connection of you guys. So from a PR point of view, like yeah, definitely. I think that's a big thing now, like growing the brand PR wise, but also like my personal brand as well. making sure people know who's behind the brand and who I am. Because like in the early stages, I wasn't too bothered about showing me. But I think in today's world, with social media and how it is now, I think it's pretty difficult to have like a faceless brand. I think obviously it can be
100%.
done. Obviously, I'm not saying it can't be done, but like it's such a massive benefit now, if you're getting your face out there, and people know who you are and who's behind the brand and who's running things, and seeing what goes on behind the scenes. So yeah, that type of thing is what I'm going to do a lot more this year. In order to continue to grow the
I
brand.
think think what you said there is hit the nail on the head, because I do a lot of strategy with smaller brands and helping smaller brands out, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there of like people buy into
Yeah,
people.
100%.
People want to know who's behind it. And like you say, faceless brands, like there's no
No,
connection there. There's no. It's just product for the sake of
yeah,
product. So getting people to buy into you, who can relate to you, who maybe see similarities in what they want to achieve from your background and how you've started your brand, and that's how people relate to people. You've seen,
100%.
I'm sure George at Represent has done a fantastic
Yeah,
job of sort of leveraging his personal brand and helping build 24/7 around his lifestyle. And as the brand's sort of scaled Represent wise, that's helped him scale his personal brand, probably freeing up his time to focus the changes in lifestyle he wanted. So I think that's a very important point you've made, to help develop brands by really putting yourself out there. I guess it's kind of challenging, isn't it? At first, I'd say probably. I don't know if you feel the same, that trying to put video content out or putting videos of yourself doing stuff or voiceovers, I guess at first it's kind of awkward and it doesn't feel natural, I guess.
yeah. I mean,
I don't know
it's
if that's a challenge you found.
yeah. Well, what's funny actually is I forgot to mention this earlier, but when I was younger, I made YouTube videos. Again, I would like, so without realizing, I didn't think I was into like creative and stuff, but without realizing I probably was. Um, so yeah, like when I was younger, I made like loads of YouTube videos, like on just random things, like whether it was like vlogs or like gaming or like skating or like stuff like that. So I've kind of always like been somewhat decent at it, just from a younger age, like just because when you do something
Yeah,
when you're younger and you continue to do so through your teenage years and into your 20s, you kind of just get the knack of it a little bit. Um, so obviously there's challenges with it. You're always going to question like what are people going to think, what are people going to say. But like that's just it's normal to think that, but at the same time it's the worst thing. It's the worst thing to think, and it's the worst way to go about it. I think you're just going to completely block out like what people's opinions are, and what people could think of you or whatever, and just go for it. But yeah, obviously the people, it's normal to face challenges from that point of view. But I think it's massive in today's world in terms of getting your face out there. And like what I was saying earlier about like building community, I think one of the only ways you can build community is if people know who you are. You've got to have your face out there. You've got to have your name out there. People have got to know who you are, what you stand for, what you're about, to be able to get on board with your brand and you personally.
100%. And do you think maybe that's kind of been led from TikTok, because that you find what works and what resonates on TikTok is people first, creative, really being about the person. Even though as daft as it sounds, some of the stuff that really goes viral on TikTok isn't necessarily always the best of
Yeah.
people. But do you think that sort of gone hand in hand with the growth in TikTok, is that it's really brought people as a brand to the forefront?
Definitely, yeah, 100%. You see a lot of like brand owners, not like it doesn't even have to be in the streetwear space, but in any industry, like anyone that owns some type of brand or is some form of creator, like the content they put out on TikTok, like it doesn't have to be anything related to their brand or anything. It can be about their personal life or random things or whatever. But that helps build personal brand. The content they put on TikTok around themselves, them personally, and then people can get on board with them and what they're about. and then that sells the product and the brand itself without them really having to even purposefully do so.
Yeah, it's that sort of indirect strategy,
Yeah,
isn't it? Of you can solely focus on pushing product, product, product. But what sets your products apart, or what sets your brand apart from others? It may not be down to the product, because if a lot of brands now are focusing on quality over pushing stuff out. So if you can really find that USP, and that could well be your personal
yeah,
brand, I think it's a almost an essential consideration. And to help, you you might find traction purely from people relating to you, and how your personal brand might at some point outgrow your actual brand. But I guess it goes hand in
yeah,
hand that you can sort of leverage one with the other.
100%.
And I think you've made a good point there, that if brands aren't doing that, it's something they really need to consider, because otherwise it's almost missing a trick, isn't it? It's falling behind. If you're just a faceless brand, how can anyone know like what separates it from anything else?
Yeah.
Like what makes it different and
And that's the
unique?
thing, like everyone always talks about like what makes their brand different, what's their USP, what makes them special. But at the end of the day, it's what makes every brand different is the DNA and the people behind it. And people are only going to buy in, to a brand if they understand the person behind the brand, because the people in the brand, that's who make it up. You know what I mean? Like everyone loves, for example, Represent because of the Heatons. You know what I mean? Like you'll probably struggle to find. Well, maybe not so much today because they do a lot of retail and more mainstream stuff now. But a few years ago, you would have struggled to find a Represent customer who didn't know who George or Mike Heaton was, because they've built their personal brands around Represent, and their DNA and their way of life and their ethos has fed into their brand, and that's what sets them apart. That's what I'm trying to do with 24/7 over the next year and going forward, is build my personal brand around 24/7, and so people know what it is that, like, kind of my ethos, and how that feeds into the brand, and that's what makes it stand out, and that's what makes it unique.
Yeah, 100%. Like there's so much now in terms of finding that DNA, and finding that what makes you you, and what makes you tick. But it's also what is, I guess, a necessary, like what people are going to buy into is
Yeah,
you as a person, and not just a product anymore. And I think probably, I guess we saw a big shift in COVID, with people having a lot more time and a lot more considerations for things that were going on in the
hmm,
world, and a lot more placing thoughts around the choice of products, and maybe changes of income as well. So I feel like there was a real shift in, people maybe having more disposable income over those couple of years, because they may be stuck at home. A lot more online shopping. I know in certain countries, like in America, where they got like stimulus, so some people got money from the
yeah,
government, which may have been for ideally designed to help them with being out of work. But people had disposable income to spend on clothes and brands, and I think the focus from that changed people's way and purchases and buying habits, and also maybe gave people the time to think and consider what they buy and how they buy. Do you think people's buying habits have potentially sort of shifted around that, and with focus on not over like price and quality, but also where garments are coming
hmm.
from? So like how things are made. Like, is sustainability like a factor for you? And do you think that's a factor for all brands now, that it has to be a consideration because of the sort of press and PR we're seeing around, fast fashion places like H&M, Zara, Primark? Do you think that plays into a consideration of what you have to do from price and design? And we know that obviously sustainable stuff comes at a cost, but do you think consumers are willing to now pay that cost?
Yeah. So yeah, like everything we make's done in the UK. So like, yeah, we do focus heavily on the sustainability and the ethical side of things from that point of view. But to be fair, it's not something we really, I mean, apart from the fact that like we're a British brand, we don't ever really like push much the fact that our stuff's made sustainably, and like I don't know. For me, I actually don't think people are really that bothered about hearing it, as long as they know it, and you know they can see that through different mediums. But as long as people know your products are made sustainably, I don't think it's something which like brands should always just like force down the customer's throat. Um, people know we're a British brand. Our stuff's made in the UK, but it's definitely a big factor. And kind of getting away from the fast fashion side of things is important as well, because there's a lot of like crap goes on, in that space with how garments are made, and like the garment lifetime and stuff like that. And people buy something on the cheap, wear it a few times, throw it away, which is completely the opposite of like my idea of fashion and streetwear. Hence the name 24/7. It's to be worn anytime, anywhere for a long period of time, years to come. So yeah, sustainability is obviously a massive thing in
Do you
the
think?
industry, and it's something that we've always focused
Do you
on.
think? Do you think brands? Do you think brands sometimes use it as just like a, like a ploy of just like saying, "Oh, we're sustainable," and it's just thrown out there for the sake of it, but then really there has to be some kind of thought and backing to it.
Yeah, I mean you'll get
Do you think they just use it as like a marketing
yeah,
tool?
yeah, you'll get loads of brands that kind of use it from a marketing and PR point of view, um, which is understandable somewhat, because like they want to make sure people know, and they're aware of that how their products are made, from like a sustainable point of view. But like I said, it's just not something that like I've really like pushed much, because for me, people buy into the brand and the ethos and what goes into making a garment, the quality, the attention to detail, the whole kind of like customer experience and journey is something I've focused on a lot. And I just don't think people really are that actually bothered about hearing sustainable, ethical, blah blah blah. Like obviously it's important, and it's something we focus on heavily. But it's more like stuff we focus on heavily behind the scenes, if you know what I mean. And then we let our brand do the
Yeah,
talking in a way.
yeah. You almost take the approach that it should just be a given.
Essentially, yeah,
Like
yeah.
it. Yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense, and I think like I say, there are sort of different brands to go about it. I've seen some startup brands where they really use it as the forefront of like being sustainable, but at the end of the day, it's in the industry that it's in. It's a difficult place to be, because you are producing disposable products that could go to landfill. But like I think what you're saying there, of really focusing on quality of you want your pieces to be something people keep
Yeah,
for years. You don't want it to just be rinse in out, and I think that's a really important thing. But like you say, that comes to your brand and what your brand stands for. You don't have to shout about it and use it as like a little a ploy, if that's what you stand for and how you've built the legacy of the brand.
exactly. And I think in like the
So
long
I,
run,
I
people
think
don't
that,
buy into that. Like people, at the end of the day, as important as it is in the industry, it is pretty boring for brands to talk about the fact they're sustainable. If that's all they talk about, that's pretty boring. Like customers and consumers need to buy into the vision of the brand and what the brand stands for, and like the creative and the aesthetic. Like people don't care that much. Well, they obviously care about sustainability, but like they don't care that much just about hearing it all the time, if you know what I mean. It's obviously good to talk about it somewhat,
yeah, and I think
but like all the time, I think people would just get a bit bored of the same brand talking about how they're sustainable, because they know it and they've kind of heard it all before, um, and yeah,
and I think people can see through that now, and I think like you say, it's a lot more of that documentation of brands where you see more behind the scenes. You see the journey on YouTube. Like a lot more brands are more transparent
yeah,
and a lot showing where things are made and sourced in Portugal and sourced in Italy, or wherever where it comes from, a more quality source where people are paid fairly. And I think like you say, maybe it's just a given now, is that people that's sort of the bar,
Yeah,
so people expect it, and consumers aren't stupid. People know, if something costs £4, there's a reason it
exactly.
costs
Yeah,
£4. You can't.
yeah. I always say show, don't tell. So
Um,
like, if you can show your products made sustainably, you don't need to talk about it. Like, people don't want to hear it; they want to see it. If you know what I mean. So like, if you can show the whole production process and the whole, like you said before, about being transparent, that's a big thing for us. Like, showing the whole process of like early stages of designing and receiving samples and showcasing the product. Um, if you can show that and show how it's made and kind of just prove in a way that it's made sustainably without having to say it, that for me is, I think, a good way to go about it. Yeah.
and before we sort of wrap up, the kind of last question I've got for you is what can we sort of expect from the brand? So what's your like sort of short term things for this year? What are your long term plans? What can people be really excited to look forward to from
If
you?
I told you that, I'd have to shoot you. No, I'm joking. No, yeah. So we've got a lot coming up this year. I'll go somewhat into detail about it, I suppose. So
what you can
yeah, yeah,
tell.
yeah. So like, first summer drop. So basically, we're creating a new logo for the brand, which I've already created. So we're going to feature that new logo across a new collection of teas this summer. For like, we're going to do 2 drops this summer. So this will be for the first summer drop. It's going to be the start of a new collection called the Perennial Collection. I haven't discussed this anyway, so this is exclusive to you. So yeah, that's what's going to be coming out this summer. So it's like, keep an eye out on the social media and stuff for that over the next few weeks. I've leaked like a few tiny little bits here and there on the story and that, but like just little stuff, nothing proper. And then like late summer, I'm going to be doing a big restock of like some of the staple teas, so like the Bolds collection, because like we first did the teas for them in 2022, and we didn't restock them last year, but we're going to restock them this year, but also in new colorways as well. And then obviously we'll be moving into fall winter, which I won't talk about too much yet. But yeah, that's the plan for the short term, I would say.
And just before we wrap up, final question is if you could give sort of one piece of advice from what your experience and your learnings to other brand owners, what would you say is that one piece of advice you'd share personally?
Yeah, I think I touched on it earlier. I would say, I think for me, one piece of advice would be, make clothes that you love and that are for you. Um, when designing, create something that you would wear every day, and it's the first thing you think about when you're looking in your wardrobe or whatever to pick out. You know, that's what I think you should do from a design point of view. Design clothes that you would wear, and the rest will come.
Solid advice. So just before we wrap up, I don't know if you want to give a quick shout out, quick plug to your handles where people can follow you, where you can check out all your info on your
Yeah, of
brand.
course. So Instagram, it's 24/7 Clo. That's spelt out. So yeah, you can check us out on Instagram there. YouTube's the same, website's the same, 247clo.com. I think TikTok's the same. I think all of our handles are the same across all socials and stuff. So yeah, 24/7 Clo. And yeah, you can find us on there. You can keep up to date with kind of all the behind the scenes of how the brands run, and stuff like that, and see everything about us. And yeah, you can check it out on there.
Awesome. I'll make sure everything's linked below. So if everyone wants to check it out, I'll leave a link to your personal handle as well. If anyone wants to drop you a follow
Cool.
or ask you a
Yeah, sure.
question, I'm sure you'd be more than happy
Yeah,
to.
100%, man.
So thanks for your time today,
No
Todd.
problem. Thanks for
It's been great chatting to
yeah,
you. Uh,
yeah. Thanks for having me, man. Thanks for
awesome.
having me.
Thanks, mate. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.